So notify me she would not be here tonight. With that, we'll call the Conservation Commission meeting to order at 7:32 on November 18th, 2021, and welcome our new member, David Harrigan. We'll give David a chance to, and you all had a chance to meet him before the meeting. That was good, and we may hear from him a little later in the meeting. Good evening. The first order of business is public comment. I see we do have a couple of visitors tonight, and it looks like prepared to make some comments. So we'll invite Kathy Wick, and I think for the purposes of the commissioners, if you name and address, and I think we observe pretty much try to limit to 3 minutes, as
Okay.
you probably are aware.
Okay, for the record, my name's Kathy Wick. I live at 181 Rimmon Road in Woodbridge. And feels good to be back, huh? I've been sat in this chair in about 2 years. So I just wanted to, especially knowing that there are so many new members of the Conservation Commission recently, I just wanted to reintroduce some information that I have talked about in the past. I think we all understand the many benefits of land conservation. Obviously you all do, you're on this board for a reason. The ecological benefits, how keeping land open mitigates the effects of climate change and supports habitats for many species. The psychological benefits, which many of us, I'm sure, have experienced during the pandemic, being able to access the outdoors and open space. I know as a member of 2 land trust boards in town, we've seen a very large increase in the use of our hiking trails in the town during the pandemic, and we've gotten many comments from people saying how important it's been for them to have access to nature for the psychological benefits that it's afforded during the pandemic. Of course, the aesthetic benefits of open space, but it turns out there are also financial benefits to open space. The reason I bring this up now is obviously you're going to be talking about a development proposal for the Country Club of Woodbridge, and the pitch from developers is resting on these financial benefits. But it turns out that it's much more beneficial to a town to keep the land open than to permit residential development. Residential development is financially beneficial for developers, but not for the towns in which those developments occur. It's actually somewhat mystifying to me that this administration is even considering this type of development. All the previous administrations since the purchase of the country club have accepted the widely understood fact that this type of residential development, single-family homes with school children in the schools, costs the town more than it could ever bring in. So I did want to just distribute, a couple of years ago, a man named Thomas DiNapoli, who's the state controller of the state of New York, wrote a paper. It's 20 pages, but I just printed out the first page for each of you. If you just Google the title, you can find the whole thing if you're interested. If you would distribute those around, I brought a copy for each person. On the economic benefits of open space. And I think one of the things that to me was so notable about this is that it's written not by a tree hugger, not by an environmentalist, but by a financier, a man who's responsible for the finances of the state of New York. And he lays out very clearly the economic benefits of open space. Closer to home, I recently discovered a very good paper written by the Highstead Foundation in Reading, Connecticut. And they've done a survey of many different studies and found that across New England, there are 39 different studies that demonstrate that the average undeveloped land parcel requires only 36 cents in municipal services for every dollar of property tax paid on that parcel. So the towns profit by having undeveloped land, while residential properties require $1.16 per dollar of property tax paid. They did a really nice chart in this handout where they have the relative costs of services by land usage. And I can email this to you, Tim, if you would, if you'd be able to distribute it to the members. So this is the break-even line here, $1. In all of the New England states, residential land costs more than it brings in, and they break it out. Commercial and industrial land costs much less, and working and open land costs even less. So,
I will mention that you're pressing it up against your time.
oh, okay. Well, that was about all I wanted to say. I just wanted to give you some documentation and some good resources for delving into this subject. Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come to talk to us.
My name is Dr. Michael Broderick. I live at 5 Old Still Road in Woodbridge, and also own and I'm the veterinarian at the Woodbridge Veterinary Hospital. One other bit, just to give myself a little qualifications to talk about this. My undergraduate degree is in natural resources and environmental science from Purdue University. So I wanted to just comment about a couple things about the development of the country club that I've researched a little bit around here, and also to reiterate just a little bit about why we got this property. When Ed Shee was the first selectman, I was at the meeting where the town decided to purchase this property. At that time, someone had bought the mortgage and was threatening to develop the property with quite dense housing. And that's why the town bought this property, to exactly avoid this kind of project. And of course, what's so disturbing is our town is now asking us to have a project almost as dense as the project that the developer was threatening. So it just doesn't seem to make much sense. And the other thing I wanted to comment on was what happens to animals on the property. Now, you might know, I've grown up in Woodbridge, lived here since 1976. And so I've seen a lot of these animals. Large parcels of land are the habitat for many species. And of course, in a suburb like Woodbridge, where we keep carving up the land into more and more subdivisions, larger parcels like this parcel of 165 acres are really important to species preservation. So some of the species that may actually be found on this parcel that are endangered in Connecticut, I'll just go down just a couple categories. In mammals, the least shrew. In bats, the eastern small-footed bat and the little brown bat. These are all kinds of animals that would be in a habitat like that. Hawks, and you might have seen this in Woodbridge, a northern goshawk. Owls, I've seen barn owls. That's, again, a kind of habitat where barn owls would live. Reptiles, and you might have seen this around town, eastern box turtles, getting more and more rare by the day. I hardly see them anymore. Frogs, the northern leopard frog, another animal that may live on that parcel. Red-headed woodpeckers. So these are just a few of the species in Connecticut that are already in really bad shape. And then, of course, it's habitat for a lot of our species that aren't as endangered. This being that last large parcel, too, has the immediacy that once it's developed forever. And you never get this kind of environment back. Animals can't live, a lot of species, in dense development like is proposed. The other thing that I thought was interesting is in one of the meetings, the developer was asked if he could even name one municipality in the state of Connecticut that was taking a beautiful open space like this and turning it into dense housing, he couldn't give one example. And the reason is some of the reasons Kathy just stated. It makes no economic sense, and it's just bad policy. So I'm really asking you as our Commission of Conservation that you really need to say to this administration, this is wrong for our town. This is wrong for conservation in Woodbridge, and we really, really need to, rethink what is going on there. And it's almost paid off. Why wouldn't we just keep this beautiful parcel as open space as it's been for many years now? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming and speaking with us. Okay. Okay. With that, we'll move on to our first business item of the night, which is the next steps that the commission will take given the Arbor Haven presentation at our last meeting. I wanted to to frame where we're coming from and just frame the discussion going forward tonight, and just prepared a couple of remarks on that. We did leave off the last meeting, needed to decide the next steps we were going to take. We ran out of time and deferred until this meeting. But I did want to outline our obligations and the possible actions we could take regarding the proposal. Arbor Haven made this proposal unsolicited to the Board of Selectmen, and it's the Board of Selectmen who will decide whether that proposal will be passed on to the voters to vote up or down. The Board of Selectmen asked the Arbor Haven to present to the public, which they did at an online meeting some number of weeks ago. Additionally, the Board of Selectmen asked Arbor Haven to present to various boards and commissions. When they did that, there was no further guidance given to the commissions. We haven't received any instructions, any information actually, other than to make an arrangement to have Arbor Haven present. Therefore, given that, we as a commission can decide our next step regarding the proposal. And I would think, thinking through it, that we have perhaps 4 options, and perhaps in our discussion we'll think of others, but we could take no action. That is possible. We could postpone taking action until we see a necessity to take a different action at all. We could communicate the additional information that we derive with the questions and the answers Arbor Haven provided through the work of the commission, the questions that were put together and the responses we got. And then finally, we could decide to put together a full-fledged, I would call it, report that would contain our observations, our thoughts on the shortcomings of the proposal, our concerns, the impacts of the proposal on the town. Being the Conservation Commission, and I think it was emphasized by the public comment today, and it's our mission to be thinking of things. We have a special way of a particular viewpoint, I guess I'd say, on these things, and the viewpoint is the impact on the town's natural resources and the implied environmental concerns if the proposal was to be implemented. Whether we bring our concerns forward to the Board of Selectmen is what we're going to decide tonight, and then how, if we want to take actions, how we would go about that. Just a couple related updates before we just open it up. The CUPOP did send the Board of Selectmen a recommendation to pause any decision until the housing study is done. So that's one other commission I know that took inaction. And secondly, the Board of Selectmen paused on the RFP that was being constructed for the use of approximately 5 acres for a facility, I'll call it a banquet facility, but it was a little bit, it could be more than that. I don't know, I wasn't privy to what's in the RFP, but that was the going in outline of the use of the 5 acres. And they've put a pause on that until the Housing Committee reports. So there seems to be some thought that the housing, in those 2 cases, the Housing Committee has something important to say about the land. So I'd like to try to observe a, as we start now, a 20-minute segment for this discussion and come to a decision on how we want to move forward.
I'd like it not to be limited to that amount of time if we have more to say than 20 minutes.
I agree. I think we should, this is a very important decision for the town, and we should spend whatever time it takes to really get everybody's thoughts on the table.
Again, we're trying to decide if we're going to move forward with any action. So I would hope that within a limited time, and if 20 is not enough, then 30, but that we should be able to figure out in that amount of time if we're going to do anything further.
Again, Tim, this is 140 homes and it requires as much time. This is what our commission is about, so we need to make sure everyone has the time to really share what they need to share about it, is my opinion.
Hopefully.
So if it only takes 20 minutes, that's great.
Yep,
But if it takes
okay.
more, I think it's important to
Yep.
make sure we all have time.
I mean, I
to
think
talk.
this is probably one of the most important decisions this commission's gonna make, probably in the next 10 years.
Well, the decision on the table for this discussion is whether we're going to move forward and do anything, and what we're going to do. We're not making the decision whether to approve the proposal or not. That is not in our charge. We are not charged with approving or disapproving the proposal from Arbor Haven. That is up to the people of the town, and that is properly.
But Tim, we're allowed to make a recommendation. That's what we need to do.
And to
And-
advise
and
advise the
And-
Board of Selectmen.
And I think what I've outlined is the 4th item, which is to make a report, advise.
Well, let's first talk and then we'll decide what the options are, because I think there's other options
Oh,
as well.
and, okay. There has to be some limit on this. We do have some time constraint in terms of budgets that have to be at least addressed tonight, so
I mean, I would
can't say that we'll
suggest,
go the
Tim,
whole-
maybe we dedicate a certain amount of time for this meeting, and if we're not finished, we can continue with the
Well,
next meeting and continue discussions of it. If you have other things on the agenda that we are pressing to get to, we don't need to make a decision or a recommendation at this meeting.
First, why don't we do those first so we can get them out of the way quickly?
If the board would like to vote and change the agenda, order the agenda, we can certainly do that.
Well, let's see where we get to and we can always,
Please repeat.
why don't we give this some time? If it's gonna take a while, we can take a break from it, go back to the other agenda items and come back to this. How's that for a compromise?
I think that's a
seems
good idea. We can
Okay.
discuss this for enough time, and then we can
Okay.
table it until the next meeting too, if we're not done.
Right. Okay, so with that, I'll open the floor.
I might as well start out by just a question to the fellow commission members. as I understand it, one of our big, items on our own agenda for the town is to create a green space, or to keep creating more of a green space surrounding the whole town, to tie us into other towns as far as their green spaces and trails and so forth and so on. And I feel with this proposal, there's absolutely nothing been said about this particular section of town. And it is not part of the green, or no part of it is part of the green space at this point. So I'd like to just put that.
It could be.
And it certainly, yes, of course it could be. I'd just like to put that out as something for the group to think about, as something that we need to discuss and question how this gets incorporated. To that extent, maybe even question the Board of Selectmen as to how they feel that the green space that they have asked us and we have proposed to create in this town does not include this section of the town. It's shown on that new map you just have there.
Mhm.
This map.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm a new member of the commission, so I'm not sure exactly how this should work, but I did watch the last meeting on TV, the presentation,
Mhm.
and I reviewed the proposal, and I just had some thoughts, just my reaction to the proposal from Arbor Haven. I'd start with the Conservation Commission's charter is to protect the town's natural resources, and I think developing the largest piece of undeveloped property in the town for high-density housing is contrary to our charter. It's, just from my perspective, it just makes no sense at all. The town purchased the property, as Dr. Broderick mentioned, in 2009 to protect it from development. So even to consider selling the property to a developer to build condos and houses is contrary to the residents' wishes and the town's strategy in purchasing the property to start with. The property has extensive wetlands and wildlife on it, which is something that I think this commission should be concerned about preserving. The property was Roger Sherman's farm. If any of you are history buffs, Roger Sherman was an early American statesman and lawyer, as well as a founding father of the United States. He was the only person to have signed all 4 great state papers of the United States, including the Continental Association, the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the Constitution. In reviewing the proposal, I spent quite a bit of time reviewing the proposal that Arbor Haven had presented, going through the financial slides that they had. My background, frankly, is financial, so of course that was one of the slides I spent some time on. But to call this proposal half-baked is generous. The Arbor Haven seems to change their numbers every time they get questioned on something. If you recall, the earlier proposals had different values of the homes. They had different numbers of students. They had different costs for the number of students. Every time they seem to be asked a question, they try to solve for the answer and change the numbers. So for instance, the estimated tax revenue, in my opinion, is grossly overstated. For instance, the developer is estimating a 2-bedroom age-restricted attached home would sell for $625,000. A 2-bedroom unit that's also surrounded by affordable housing is going to sell for $625,000. I'm not a real estate agent, but I've lived in Woodbridge my entire life, and I don't think that's reasonable at all. The estimated cost to the town in terms of additional services, and I just focused on the educational services that would be required for the development, not to include the fire, the police, and other services that any development or any resident of the town would draw on the town, but just to focus on the students. The number of students that were estimated using the national average, they used a statistic of what the national average was across the country in terms of the number of students per household. Completely unrealistic. Everybody that lives in Woodbridge knows that the buyers of homes in Woodbridge are families that have children that intend to have them be in the school system. So to estimate that at 1 is just completely silly. If you use an honest estimate of the number of school children per unit of 2, I estimate there'd be 206 additional students in the school system, not the 72 that the developer estimates. Further, the cost per student that the developer is estimating is 17,000 something, which is considerably different from what they started with. But the current Amity budget costs the town of Woodbridge $19,732 per student. There's no such thing as an incremental cost at Amity. It's what the town gets allocated from the Amity budget. So just doing the quick math, the cost to the town would be $4 million per year if this development was approved. There's numerous flaws in the financial analysis they've done. They've assumed that an age-restricted home would have no impact on the town school system, which is totally unrealistic. And compared to the last 4 proposals, the other developers assumed that 1/3 of the buyers of the homes would be people coming from Woodbridge. If that's the case, then the number is more like 206 students as opposed to 72. You can see that the numbers just don't work for the town. The revenue would be far less than what the cost would be. Other issues that I found with the proposal is the developer was very vague in terms of what he was going to develop. He showed pictures of, frankly, clip art that he got off the internet of what he was going to possibly develop. It was kind of silly. It was, frankly, it was kind of insulting. He described the roads that he was going to have in the development as Roman roads. They were dirt roads. I mean, let's call them what they are. They're dirt roads. Now, if people are familiar with associations in Woodbridge and in other towns, when the association decides to abandon the roads, they turn it back to the town. It's the town's responsibility to maintain the road. So the taxpayers of Woodbridge would be ultimately responsible for maintaining these so-called Roman roads, which means we would probably have to pave them too. This proposal is the worst proposal compared to the last 4 proposals, and those were rejected by the town residents. Just in summary, and I know we're trying to keep this time down to a limit, but the expenses far exceed the revenue, and it sacrifices the largest open space in town, which I think is really a very, very important aspect of this. It's just not the financial side. Is once this open space is gone, which is what our commission's charter is to protect, that space is gone forever. There's no going back. I think we should recommend to the Board of Selectmen that this proposal be rejected and that the Board of Selectmen be more selective on what they send to boards and commissions. This will be the 3rd meeting that you've spent time discussing this proposal, and if the Board of Selectmen had just given it a cursory review to start with, they wouldn't have sent it to these boards, all the boards to consider. Tremendous amount of time that's been wasted, and tremendous amount of energy, and this commission should be focusing on identifying property in town that we can protect and conserving our natural resources. That's our charter. Spending time on a development like this that makes no strategic sense for the town, no financial sense, is just unproductive. And I think the Board of Selectmen really should be more selective in what they bring forward to the boards and commissions. So
Thank you, Paul.
those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else want to?
Well, just briefly, I've thought a lot about the density density of 143 homes. And I have identified with Val another similar development, and I have a picture of it. It's certainly not exactly accurate, but it really does not account for any accommodation for wildlife. And also, I think, and as Val may speak to later with her knowledge of real estate and easements, the idea that these greenway pathways are crisscrossing 100 homes and preventing people from having more ability to develop their yard as they choose will be a real irritant and is likely to fail and will possibly create litigious lawsuits and a headache for the town that's beyond what they had anticipated and could cost the town another large amount. And I agree to the point with everything you've said in terms of it being a very, I mean, the fact that they didn't show us, every other of the other three plans did show us where the houses would generally be. They weren't promising it. They showed the amount of disturbed area, basically, and they showed, so we could have a visual. And they have not provided that, and I think, one, there's absolutely no way we could vote anything positively because of that, but because of all the other factors that you've spoken about, I think it is beholden to us to not waste a lot more of our time dwelling on a proposal that is so detrimental to the environment with so little upside financially to the town.
I'd like to speak if I can. Valerie King. I am a licensed real estate broker, and I'm also a pre-licensed mortgage licensee. And I was taking continuing ed classes for my mortgage, not the real estate, and there was a whole section about condominiums. And laws and regulations are changing as we speak because of the Dodd-Frank law. And there is a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and there's a number of new regulations coming out as late as 2020. So I'm reading this whole discourse about condominiums. So we're looking at condominiums, or the developers are from the developer side, but they have to finance these condominiums with banks, and the banks have to follow Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae guidelines, and they are changing. And my husband's a loan officer, and because he works in the house, I overhear his conversations all the time. So he literally lost a deal last week because there was a seasonal property, and there was a road to this seasonal property, and no one knew who had to maintain it. They didn't know if the town maintained it or the people that lived in the seasonal development. So in order to get financing for the homeowners to buy into this, and this is a PUD, a single family, these are single family homes, and the distinction between a PUD and a condominium is that they're going to own their own property. So on a PUD, you have HOA fees, and you own your own land, and on a condominium, you have common interest. So Fannie Mae has guidelines regarding condominiums and PUDs. For example, if one of these homeowners decides to sue the developer, there will be no financing for anyone else while that lawsuit is pending. No one else will be able to get financing for a condominium while that developer or the condo association is being sued. So I really don't believe we have all the information, and you cannot rely on the information solely from the developer. We have to have either our own attorney or someone on our side that has superior knowledge, because as we found out, every time we did ask a question, they were quick to respond, but some of the responses were not logical and they were not feasible. And if we present something, it has to be logical and it has to be feasible and practical. For example, as I mentioned last month, they were saying that they were going to maintain the roads and that they were going to own the roads, but yet they were going to put an easement on people's property. That's a contradiction. You can't tell people that you own this property, but then you're going to allow other people to trespass or walk on it. This proposal is flawed from a housing standpoint. I'm not even commenting on conservation at this point, but from a housing standpoint, it is really, really flawed. There's a lot of discrepancies and contradictions in the proposal. They don't even mention the word condo, I don't think. I think they said 4 attached units. So I don't even know if everyone is fully aware that this complex of development comprises single-family homes and attached condos. That's where you have the HOA fees. So I feel that this should either be revised, or I reject this proposal based on the way that it was written.
And something else that I think in my discussion or insights is that I think one of the attractive things is the affordable housing aspect of it, which will be 1/10 of or 15% of the houses.
Mm-hmm.
It only lasts for a certain number of years. It's not into perpetuity, but it also requires, according to their own indications, that the person puts down $48,000. Now, if it's really low income and we're attracting people that really can't afford to be in Woodbridge, $48,000 is a very unlikely amount that they'll be able to put down. Plus the HOA fees, which I have no idea how much they might be, but they're not going to be under $200 or $300. Plus the taxes, plus the mortgage. So you're really wanting someone who, and it's a $230,000 house price. So you're asking for someone over $100,000 or $150,000 income to be able to afford that effectively. So I think even the low income aspect, it's sort of a farce. I mean, if we're truly trying to get people who cannot afford to be in Woodbridge because of this is not only taxes, mortgage, but there's an HOA fee which adds another 10 or 15 or 20%, plus their requirement to have 20% down. And if they don't do that, they have to pay another mortgage insurance fee. So I think those of us who are interested in bringing in low-income housing have to look at this very critically, because this is not the young college grad who's got one child who is earning $50,000 in their first job. This is not that person. This is the family with 3 kids who has $150,000 that they're both earning a sizable amount. So I just think that that's also, and the number of perceived discrepancies or lack of transparency in their presentation also gives me an uncomfortable feeling that our town goes into such a complex deal with a group of people that are being that unstraightforward with us, not even mentioning condos straightforwardly, not mentioning that it's really not low income, not showing us a picture. I mean, what else is next? What else are we being unaware of that we should be asking about? How much blasting, how much environmental damage? And
Well,
also, I don't know if they got back to you, Tim, but Barbara asked a very important question about this being a Roger Sherman, who happens to be a relative of mine, piece of property. And I mean, I would think if they were really responsive, they would have gotten back to you saying, we've investigated this and this is how we'll protect the playground, and maybe they have, but that's a developer that I think would be someone the town would want to work with, not someone who didn't even know about that.
In point of fact, just to address the Roger Sherman historical aspect of it, I believe they left us with a request to please provide them with more information.
But that's even not good. I mean, they should be interested enough to pursue it themselves. They're the ones who are.
And it's not hard to find.
I think
The
one of our
info-
comments with respect to some of the questions you asked was, we can't provide you that detail until basically we have a deal to go forward with,
Well,
which is kind of silly. It's like, just trust us. You know, when somebody describes a dirt road as a Roman road, it raises a red flag in my mind that they're really not sincere.
And also, having experience with dirt roads and a property in Lee, ours just washed out in 2 places with the rain we had this year. They'd have to take a lot of maintenance, and that would mean more HOA fees, which mean more likely that they'd be defaulted on, which means the town would more likely have to take it over and asphalt it. And I think they're saying a permeable surface because they know it's a buzzword that we'd like, not because they really have an intention, because it's not like a flat surface. It's that land has contours
Right.
that make it much more likely to wash out
A lot
than
of
a flat surface.
runoff on that land because of the
Absolutely.
hilly
And
Right,
it's,
so-
and it's much, much less expensive for the developer to provide a Roman road than a paved road, you know,
And
so.
less engineering, I mean, I don't know that, but
And my question is, if they are doing this, or going to do what they say, and then everything, or not everything we asked, but several things we asked, they said, well, it's the homeowners association that's going to enforce this, the homeowners. Well, if they walk away and the homeowners association decides to do something else, like take away all the residents from town to having access to the property, there's nothing anybody can do. The homeowners association made that decision, that changed.
I grew up in Woodbridge, and that hill at the corner of Johnson and Ansonia Road we used to go sledding on. And, you know, I don't see that there's a reason for the town to give up, you know, that beautiful property and then have millions of dollars of additional expense every year too. It just doesn't make any sense financially, strategically, you know, to conserve the property, to provide a venue for town residents to enjoy. It just, from no level does this proposal make any sense for the town. The only person that this proposal makes sense for is the developer.
Seems to me that everyone present here has expressed concerns about the proposal. For my part, I find it interesting, and I sent a document just as background that the proposal was inconsistent with the previous recommendations of the joint CUPOP, Conservation Commission, and Planning and Zoning, I believe, for how the property should be used. And that just struck me that to the point, I think you made, Paul, that it could have been reviewed and at the beginning without the disposition down to the commissions. It could have been avoided if some close attention had been paid to that as well. So, lots of concerns.
no, they're beyond concerns.
Well, all right.
I mean, I don't want to minimize it.
Give me a word that.
I think
oh.
I would like to call a vote personally, and
Well-
I don't see any reason why we should be spending more time.
I think we should vote to reject the proposal and then also send a message to the Board of Selectmen that they should be more selective in what they send to boards and commissions to be considered going
Yeah.
forward.
I second it.
I
I would like to interject before. I would like to, modify your suggestion. I would like to vote, reject this proposal and give reasons why.
That's what I was
And because there is a housing committee, and some of the issues that we're bringing forward are going to overlap with housing, and they may not realize some of the concerns that we're bringing up. So I would like a little bit more an intense, more response than just saying no. I think we should say
Exactly.
why
We
we're
need
saying
to-
no, and that they can read it, because these are very, very, very important points that, I don't wanna say that the developer misrepresented, because the term misrepresentation means that they knowingly did something wrong, that they knowingly did not communicate the exact information. But I don't think they were aware of everything. For example, they asked a question, I think, Tim, you asked a question about common fees, and the response last month was, they're all the same. And that is never the case with HOA fees. It's
It's
always based
by
on
square
square footage.
Yeah.
And so when they said that,
So-
that gave me more pause that
Yeah.
they're not giving us the right information. So I think this is a big proposal. I think we should reject it, and for reasons that we have been discussing.
Okay.
Biological, environment, conservation, financing, the Roman roads. I think that we should put some more work into it and reject it that way.
I would be
Well,
supportive
I-
of that. I second that.
So before we move on here, I would like to say again, I don't think that this commission can accept or reject the proposal. It's not in our power. We can,
I talked to Jason and he said that we can vote it up or down. I mean, that was his implication. I don't wanna hold him to it, but he said we can vote. I asked
all right,
him specifically.
others can have different opinions on that, but I don't think, we have not been charged, and it's clear we're not gonna be accepting or rejecting the proposal.
Well,
Can we make
but
can we,
I-
if I can finish my sentence, please? We can make recommendations, and I believe we can make, and building off what Val said, I think making recommendations and bringing information to light that can go to the Board of Selectmen and therefore to the public will help when the eventual disposition of the proposal, because the voters need to know and understand all, and I'll use the word again, Sharon, excuse me, all the concerns that you've all just expressed and that we expressed last week. And if we go simple, then there is nothing then probably what might be expected beforehand from the Conservation Commission, that it's not a good idea.
Can I just say something? I think what we're saying is not that we voting against it, but that we are advising the Board of Selectmen that this is not a good idea for all these many reasons.
And I agree with that. That's what I'm trying to say in my
That's what we're
own,
supposed to be
my own
doing
words.
now.
Tim, that's, in all the commissions I've been part of, which is not a lot, for
Hmm.
wetlands, we voted on things and we made decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people of Woodbridge deserve to know as a body what we think. And we've done that with previously.
But that's what we are gonna do. It's simply that we're
But I
just
think Tim
simply,
doesn't want us to reject it offhand with our specific reasons.
I think maybe a middle ground might be is we just decide to advise that the Board of Selectmen reject the proposal. Is
Yes,
that better
that's-
wording? I don't know, it's kind of semantics.
Well,
but-
I think it's
again,
semantics that we're talking about here now.
Again, Paul, if we do that, okay, we've advised them, but we've not provided our concerns, serious concerns, to the greater community.
Oh, no, I'm supportive of us giving the reasons why we're not in favor of it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so so the suggestion,
I think we're on the
that's
same
where
page.
my thinking was in the original, and I used the word report, but, that implies things maybe we don't want to do, but giving our reasons, giving the list of concerns and observations about the proposal, and be factual about it, be detailed about it, so that it becomes, available to the public as this process goes on.
I think
That's-
that all makes sense, except I think it can come with our rejection.
Well, I mean, as we write that report, then we can structure
What we are
that
saying is that
into
this is a
that.
bad we're voting to say to the Board of Selectmen that we
Okay, as
feel
long
that
as
this
it
is a
isn't-
very, very bad idea and should not go forward because of thus and thus and thus and thus
Okay,
and
so
thus.
how would we, who's,
Kevin, let me just jump in here a second. from a parliamentarian point of view, a motion was made, it hasn't been seconded,
I second.
so
Right.
it's sort of out there.
Well, I didn't hear it structured as a motion, but,
I seconded it.
but,
Okay, so you
but
seconded it.
what is,
So we need
So
to
now
vote.
you can discuss it.
if there is a motion on the floor,
I
I did
motion
not
that, I make a motion that we, develop a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and we also, I outline our reasoning for our motion, or our recommendation. And,
Can I speak now? Is that out of?
and we, since it's been formally made, it needs a second. Let's go in the right order here.
But
I didn't hear it
does that
formally.
include a rejection of it?
yes,
That includes a rejection, then I'll second it if it includes a rejection.
I'm not sure I,
Before, can I ask a question before we go, before she seconds it? Can we still discuss?
well, I'm not sure I heard the complete motion. You know, an add-on was made, so,
so I'm amenable to what you've suggested.
and which was, can I hear it?
That we
State it
have a
again?
rejection as part of our recommendation. That we
So,
reject,
in effect,
we advise the Board of Selectmen to reject the proposal.
and provide reasons.
And provide the reasons why we're rejecting it.
In detail.
Yes.
And I second
Okay.
that. Now, is there?
Now, Val,
discussion?
My question was answered, but we have a quorum. I did not know what arrangements had been made with, I believe Diane, who is on pregnancy, maternity leave. Was anything made out with her in terms of her voting, or she'll just be absent, or, okay, no proxy or anything?
No.
But we have a quorum anyway.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a point, whether, you know, on something, as you said, is so important that we want to try to have the full commission available. You know,
Well, we have
that
a-
could be a consideration.
Quorum,
We have
or
a
you
quorum.
can vote to do that.
Oh, we have a quorum to do business, there's no question. It's just a consideration for the others not there.
So shall we vote,
um,
or do we send more
Well,
discussion?
So the vote would be to reject and provide reasons.
Thorough,
You wanna
complete
see-
reasons
Okay.
that they could
Yeah,
benefit from.
you know,
Wanna raise
I guess I'll state one more time, I don't think it's up to us to accept or reject the proposal. It's that if
Ken, I think,
it's that we
I think
I
we're
think
talking
we-
semantics here.
well,
I think
well,
we're just making the
we could.
recommendation, because we obviously we're not in a
That's the
position to kill a proposal. We can just
Yeah,
recommend to
we
the Board of
recommend
Selectmen.
yeah,
that
that
they
they,
reject
that
it.
they,
Reject
that they reject the proposal,
Yes.
okay. And we,
Can we see,
In-
we do by hands?
so we, can we amend that language to just be specific, to recommend that they reject the proposal?
No. We're rejecting it, we're recommending that they reject
I don't, and that's where I have a problem, because I don't
it.
think,
Okay, then you
it's
can
up-
vote against it, but that's that's
Oh,
what's.
well, I'm just in the
I mean,
discussion, I want you to,
I think parliamentally, we can't change it again unless someone withdraws it and you change it. again.
well, I'm asking for an amendment to the proposal, and that we can do and accept. And
Can you repeat the,
well, it has to be seconded and then accepted, but,
Frankly, I don't quite understand the difference. Would you repeat your motion?
Sure, my motion is that we advise the Board of Selectmen to reject the proposal, and that we give them the specific reasons why we recommend that they reject it. If you want to have this board actually reject the proposal also, I'm amenable to that. I'm not sure what our authority is to reject it.
Mhm.
I'm new on the board, so I really don't know.
It either, but I
If-
just
No,
wanna be.
well,
If we're able to flat reject it and then advise the Board of Selectmen to reject it also and give them the reasons, I'm certainly okay with that approach also.
David, can you give us a little insight from your past experience?
Well, I think what they're asking for is your recommendation, and you can offer your opinion as to this proposal. And you have, I think you have the right to do that. I mean, they're shopping this proposal around to get the recommendations from the commissions that are concerned. And you're definitely a commission that's concerned, so you have to offer your opinion. And if your opinion is that you're against this proposal, that's what you say. If you say you're gonna recommend against it, that's what you say. If you say you're going to reject it completely, that's what you say. I mean, I think you're within your rights to do any of it.
yeah,
I think just taking a moment to think about this, I think it would be easier for the townspeople, residents to understand if we flatly rejected it and then we gave our reasons why we rejected it. It might be more understandable for people to understand our position as opposed to just advising that we reject it. It just seems as though if somebody has to explain to the residents what our position was, it would be easier to explain that we actually rejected the proposal and that we recommended the Board of Selectmen also reject the proposal.
I second.
I already have one on the,
I
already have one.
don't think the motion has changed, and so
Okay.
I think it's,
You already-
My only
You
question
already-
is, are you going to include the reasons in this motion?
Yes.
yes,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
been
That's
specified. So before we call it, to put together the reasons will be an effort. You know, we would like to make sure that it includes the thoughts of everyone on the commission, including the two members not here who were here last time. And, well, maybe at least one was. We captured a number of reasons, so we'd like to capture theirs. And this will have to be collated, consolidated, and put together. And I guess I would, suggest that's going to take some effort, and it may take probably maybe best done by a little subgroup.
What you said in your letter there is a pretty concise version of it, and we can just add some things that Valerie said, and talk about the greenway, and it's pretty much done.
I think we could do this in a one-page document.
Okay?
Mhm. And I think we're all willing to pitch in and help
Yeah.
make sure that it's done the way we all want it done.
Okay.
Right.
So we'll just have we can discuss this piece after, but we will have to coalesce that, and then I would suggest that then that gets approved also by the commission at the next meeting.
So we didn't vote.
No,
Well, I
I think you can take what we've said already. Do you really think it needs another meeting?
well,
I don't
yeah, it
think
needs
that's-
some mechanism to make sure that
Well, I
it
think we can
reflects
Utilize the notes that
the
Valerie
thoughts of the
has.
commission, yes. So, yeah, I think
I-
we want to,
If it's written
sure.
up and then passed around
yeah.
person to person to person, and
We all okay it?
Yeah.
I don't see any.
But
there's
not
no
sh-
reason to wait for
I'm
another
not sure we can
meeting.
do that outside of the context of the meeting, can we? I think that would be,
To approve a letter that we've all agreed should be written?
well, it's the contents. It's not that,
But we know what the context is, it won't be anything but what we said tonight. I
And
guess
we
I don't
haven't voted
understand.
yet, by the way, so.
Okay, so
Yeah,
let's,
no,
I
that's-
think we have to vote.
okay.
can we call a vote? I mean, I don't know who could call.
Yeah, so, and why don't we read that motion one more time to, make sure.
Would you like me to read it, or?
Whoever thinks they have the most accurate,
Someone's gotta record the motion.
yes.
Okay.
And
So-
Val should be
I'm trying to-
recording it, so
I'll-
that's,
I'll read
I
the
wanna make
motion,
sure that
or
Val has it.
Right,
I'll summarize the motion if you like.
okay.
I make a motion that the Board of, the Conservation Commission reject the proposal from Arbor Haven, and that we further recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they reject the proposal from Arbor Haven, and that we draft a document that documents the specific reasons we discussed tonight for rejecting the proposal.
Okay.
I think we need a second.
No, it's already seconded. That was just a clarification of the motion. Val, you all set?
Mhm.
Okay. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And one abstention. Okay, just briefly, how would we like to get the recommendations written now?
So can you repeat that, Tim? How would we like?
How are we gonna collect the recommendations and write them down?
Is there a format that generally used for something like this?
No, well, I think it'll be a letter.
A memo or
To
something?
yeah, a memo to the Board of
Okay.
Selectmen. My original thought on this was a small group of three of the commission to put it together and make sure.
Val, Barbara, you and Val? So which,
All four of us can.
I think we can only have three, otherwise we have too many people.
Oh, that's right.
But I don't need to be, I think the three of you would be great, I'm willing to be a part of it also. Who would like to be part of it?
I'm happy to do it.
I-
Nicole and Val?
I'm happy to help out too, so I can help draft it,
Yeah.
and I can just get everybody's email addresses and send them a
Yeah.
draft. Is it all right if we discuss it to make sure that we've got all the edits correct? Is that
Well,
permissible?
Yeah, I think we may, well, I need to check on this for this activity. I don't, I'm not exactly sure. In worst case, and this is not a bad case, it's that we just form a little subcommittee and we just notice it and it gets done when you have to collaborate on it. And so,
Yeah.
I don't, we
Why
were
not just
talking,
do that?
I'd be
So
glad to
Val,
help
you wanna
draft
do it,
and,
And Val
Right.
and Paul, and you guys can form a subcommittee, and then you'll send it to the rest of us?
That's fine with me,
Is
yeah.
that good?
the three of you,
Excuse me, I also appreciate the comment from the public, that they took the time to come here, and I think that they also have some important things to add, especially, both of them,
Well,
and I think
and
that,
hopefully we've absorbed those and can include the concerns within the concerns that we have.
That might be an interesting thing to put the financial part of it from
Yeah,
that study.
yeah.
into as well.
Um,
That was interesting.
I would just, and so Val, did you agree to join that?
yes.
If not, I will.
Oh, it doesn't matter to me. I can defer to you, or I can be on it, it doesn't matter.
Think about it, decide, and I'll do either way. I just advise that it, keep it factual, that everything there is factual. That we don't wanna speculate, things we, cannot, point back to a source. I will, research that and get back to you,
Okay.
Paul, is what we need to do that, FOI. Three people don't comprise a quorum, but there are some types of business that can't be conducted.
But it could be noticed too, right? And it
Yes,
could be
well, that's
part of it.
what we do with a subcommittee, would be just designate a subcommittee and go forward. Okay. I think that ends that item. So I think, where are we? think we can move quickly through some of the other items. Oops, didn't mean to limit you on that, Mr. Lober, but the next item up is the Liaisons Report, I believe.
You want me to, say you want me to condense this?
I'd like you to convey the important information and only condense if you're able to.
I'm gonna do that. All right, so the Country Club of Woodbridge Clubhouse was deemed unsafe, because it was being, it was not secured, it's being secured now, and lighting has been installed and police patrols have been increased. It has been used by vagrants and there was vandalism occurred. New England Brewing is most likely leaving Woodbridge and going to West Haven. First Selectman again expressed her interest in the Arbor Haven proposal. She cited increasing the grand list, providing senior housing, and beginning to provide state mandated affordable housing. She did not mention associated costs nor the loss of the parcel. Our farm has been running a hunger relief program, providing free meals during the summer. They've donated 6,000 pounds of food and 100 dozen eggs, and they're going to continue in their greenhouses over the winter months. SCROG has committed to address the sustainability issues, including waste management and renewable energy, including composting of food scraps and electrification of municipal fleets. Hope Harrigan was appointed to the Conservation Commission. There was a special meeting. There was an RFP for development of the clubhouse and the 5 surrounding acres of the Woodbridge Country Club. There was also a conservation easement discussed with that original proposal. This RFP, which resulted from a petition submitted by Jim Urbano, signed by 250 Woodbridge residents, was drawn up but not submitted to publication. Town Council stated the agreement with Mr. Urbano stipulated only the creation of the RFP, but notes by Mr. Urbano from that meeting contradicts that position. The vote was taken to pause any action on the RFP until the board receives further information, including a report from the Woodbridge Housing Opportunities Committee, which will complete its work by June 2022. The board authorized the Amity Woodbridge Historical Society to apply for an Historic Recreation Fund grant from the Connecticut Historical Preservation Office. But matching funds were not approved by the town because they need to be voted on at the budget at the annual town meeting.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have questions
Yes.
about the RFP regarding Jim Urbano,
Yes.
and I didn't understand that.
What's your question?
I didn't understand what your,
Okay. So, Jim Urbano had an idea that the clubhouse had value and wanted it to be shopped around, an RFP drawn up for commercial use, probably something like a banquet hall, a restaurant, and he also wanted a conservation easement on the rest of the land. He circulated a petition, got 250 signatures, which were brought to the town council, and the form was improper, but getting beyond that, it was agreed that an RFP would be drawn up, and it wasn't circulated. The board voted to not circulate the petition until the housing commission report was finished.
Which is the item I mentioned earlier as we started our discussion. Anything else? Thank you. All right, the next couple elements I hope are fairly quick. The first one, a little background, and then I'll make a motion to adopt the I happened to be looking through the plan of conservation and development, and I noticed that the town planning and zoning had a land classification system that was within that document. It struck me that it was overlapping with what we had done on our property use classifications. And I looked at it carefully. There is overlap. But it did strike me that we perhaps had left off within our private development use two types of uses that I think would be beneficial to just add to the document. I think it was within our intent. The words aren't there, and I'd like to put the words there. We are due in passing, adopting the classification system. We had said that we would bring it to the attention of the Board of Selectmen, and we have not done that yet. So prior to sending it over, I'd like to make this change. And then, and I'll include in the motion, the commission, I guess authorizing me to draft a letter of conveyance to the Board of Selectmen with the classification system and the analysis tool. So with that, I'll move that we adjust the PDU classification to include the word industrial and institution, and that the chair should convey the as previously, well, we actually don't need that second part of the motion. Let me withdraw that because we've already passed that motion to bring it to the Board of Selectmen. But so, and the second part of that, Val, would be the chair will convey to the Board of Selectmen by letter. So it's adopting the full, just for clarification, and I'll need a second, but the full definition would read for private development use, housing, commercial property, industrial, or institutional. Actually,
I'm not sure where this fits in. Can you give us a visual in any way? And I know some of us hardly know about it at all.
well, yeah, I think I sent the classification back out. It's on page 5 of the classification, and I can send that over to you.
So, oh, yes, okay.
That's a document I think I sent to everybody in advance of the meeting.
What is your last word? Housing or commercial, industrial, or what?
Let me read it again. I think I maybe didn't read it correctly the first
time.
time. The PDU, so private development use, the definition would become housing, commercial, industrial, or institutional property.
Institutional, okay, thank you. Of course, can't find it. I'm looking for it.
So, do you mind if I just, the private development use, housing or commercial use, and you just wanna add industrial and institutional, cause
Yes.
they may fit under that same
Of
portion.
a private
Right.
development, yeah. It's a private
This is
entity, it's
property
not a government
designation,
entity.
So this is a. Okay. So you're just making that a broader
Just
scope, so
broaden it
that
out.
it will catch more.
Yeah, and it makes it consistent with
Yeah.
planning and zoning, and
Yeah.
if we ever get to a discussion with them, it's
I'll
easy.
second that.
Okay, thank you.
This might be something to show newer members to get them up to speed more on it in terms of how, it's about how we might designate property to think about whether we wanna purchase it or whether we wanna recommend the kind
I see.
of ecological value to the, is that right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. This is, just while Val looks at that, this is something we've shared with the Coopop group as well as the Land Trust. We not only shared, we solicited input, and we think And I will make the statement in the letter that, you know, other agencies in town could make use of it, especially housing as they go, and they're gonna look for places to put affordable housing. They're aware of it, and have shown some interest in it, but,
So it's a way to discern,
okay.
a crude way, I think, to discern the ecological
So-
value of it.
It's just that
I
one
see.
item circled in pink, Val.
Oh, okay.
Any other discussion on this? Okay. So, then I'm gonna,
Should we vote?
yes, I'm gonna ask, I'm just trying to think of the right wording here. If there is no objection, then I'll ask that we adopt this by unanimous consent. Any objection? The motion to add industrial and institutional to the PDU definition. Any dissent to that? Any objection to that? Then it's so adopted that we'll add the words, and the chair will write a letter to the Board of Selectmen. The meeting schedule I had sent out. It's basically, I was going to throw it up on the screen, but I think everybody has. I sent that
Yeah, we
before.
said
Beforehand. It is basically the same meeting schedule we have now, third Thursday of the month, except for March. We moved March 17th meeting, is the third Thursday, to March 24th.
For a reason?
Mm-hmm. For those who observe St. Patrick's Day in a way that they might prefer to observe St. Patrick's Day rather than,
Interfere with your- Well, unfortunately, March
we-
24th might be observed that way too.
try to be sensitive to
Important holidays.
important holidays. Thank you for those words.
March 24th is just
Now,
as
no,
important.
the 7th,
March 24th is just as important.
the 7:30 start time is, my preference would be 7. The Board of Finance meets in this room when they meet in person, I believe at 5:30. And they would bump us if they went, and there are certain times of year where they go later. That's the reason of the 7:30 meeting, but that would be a preference.
Is it 5 maybe?
6.
The
6.
6. 6, oh, 6.
Okay.
Thank you. So even later than I
Six.
thought, so wouldn't give us enough time.
You have to do 7:30.
Yes, yes. So, if there are,
I motion to approve.
I'm sorry, wait a minute, I didn't hear, what was, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that one.
okay.
To adopt the.
Well,
meeting
then,
agenda.
since there's a motion,
Timeline.
I'll second the motion. I think I can do that.
All in favor?
Anybody? If there's no objection,
Val, you in favor?
Yes,
we'll adopt by unanimous consent.
we're adopting that, the meeting is at 7:30?
The meeting will
Yes.
be on the published schedule, and I will submit that to Town Hall.
Now,
So,
Tim,
on the schedule that was distributed, that's all
if
it
we have
is.
to go back to non-in-person, are you gonna wanna do it again at 7? I know it's a special meeting, so you can just determine.
Yeah,
each time.
we can change,
Barb has it.
that's a conflict for Barb,
Well, it may not be.
for,
as of
for this year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it may
for the
not be as
foreseeable
of
future.
January. I'm
Okay.
trying to get out of, I'm missing another board meeting right now
Uh-huh.
too, because it's always
Okay.
on. Anyway, so it might be fine.
But it did, thank you, Barbara, Sharon, it did remind me that I did want to make one other comment on scheduling. Since virtual meetings are allowed, as we go into the winter months, unless there's an objection, I want to be able to kind of look ahead on the weather forecast, and if we see bad weather, then I'll flip this back to a virtual meeting if I can get the proper notice done in time, just so we're not fighting the elements. Okay. All right. Next item is I'm gonna do this very quickly.
Oh, yeah, usually in December,
Yeah.
why, because of Christmas? No, I mean, you move the meeting if it's for the holiday,
Okay,
and you could do that.
okay, all right.
If you have a spot, then you have to find a spot.
Just, one minute of background. I explored this with the previous chair and have discussed it with Betsy Yagi in the town hall. In background, there have been documents lost, the Conservation Commission documents over time, which is tragic. There were a lot of property evaluations, information that was lost. Jason himself had 556 files that he wanted to pass on to me, electronic files, plus a whole box of paper. But and given that much information, I thought it might be good for us to have an electronic repository that would have documents that we all could access, and they would be also available to the public if the public wanted to look at them. So this would be a transparent way. So I'm not going to do a deep dive demo here. I wanted to introduce the concept. I will do a couple clicks just to show you. This is called Box. It's a very simple file system. You can play with it. I'm going to send out after the meeting, I'm going to send a link. It would be the link, type of link we'd give to the public. I'll send that to you offline, and you can go up and you can click.
Do people need a password to get into it?
People will not need a password in this case. This link we can provide, we can do it in a way so that those of us who need to add files, those on the commission, will have a password. The public will not need a password.
Okay.
What I'm going to send you, you won't need a password. I'm not going to bother you with that right now. And just play around with it, and then next meeting we'll have an agenda item to whether to adopt it, and then I'll go through making it official with town hall. So this starts with a top level folder, and I'm just going to click it, and we could have a structure that looks like this. I have Jason's 556 files up here. They do need a little organization, so there's a little work being undone. To me, it's a nice winter activity. When you don't want to go outside anymore, so we'll get to organize it. And I think what I was just going to show you as an instance. Not too recently, there was I received some additional information, and I just created a folder for that so that it could be made available to everybody on the commission without flooding your email, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So, any other quick questions? I mean, this is very similar to other systems. Microsoft has one. There's Dropbox. Microsoft is OneDrive. So you may have heard, you may have used some of this, but we use it for the well, we're looking at using it for Notable Trees program. I know the Park Association uses Box to keep their records on. So, and that was all. So we'll consider it next time. All right, the other important item for tonight is the budget. As I've again talked to Jason, who was the past chair, he had said that sort of the process that, and I wasn't around for the budget last year, but the process he was using, at least in the first step, was to propose a budget in this meeting, gather input, comments, and then in the December meeting, we'll come back and finalize it, and we'll approve it, and that will go to the town and roll up.
Isn't it true, I think Jason may have some hard time with it, but that you have to go and present it to the Board of Finance and?
There's a, yes.
And you can't
That's
miss
a-
those
In short, yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much of a presentation it is as
But I think if you miss it, then.
a
if you miss
question
that
and answer
meeting-
session.
If you miss that meeting, then they don't necessarily consider a change in the budget. I don't know the exact things, I just
yeah.
wanna make sure that we.
Yeah,
have
that,
a timeline for what
there,
we need
there,
to do.
there are multiple steps and the Board of Selectmen gets a cut at it and the Board of Finance gets a cut at it. And to be honest, I don't remember where the make yourself available for questions occurs. But the, and now, actually, it might be a good segue here. I was going to show you the budgets of past.
What is the $8,000 for? I saw that in the material you sent me. What is that?
Well, that was
Profits.
in 1920 to 20 year, fiscal year 2019 to 20. And I do not know exactly, except for the comment under the narrative. I don't know what that was proposed for. There may have been,
I think that there
something.
were some of us who thought that if we had a budget, we could do some, public works and some activities that might be helpful to the town in terms of beautification and, just having some access to some funds, cause we have so little that it could
Yeah.
be useful to,
yeah.
and if we don't
It-
use them, then it's not a problem, they just go back into the general fund, but if we don't have to look for
But-
money as well as think of to plan what we're gonna do. And I talked to Tony Genovese and he was open to it, but it never came up to the budget meetings and it didn't get passed.
Well,
Yes, sir.
in point of fact, I think it was proposed, as you can see in column B, the 8,000, and then it was not adopted
Well, my
at
understanding
all.
is.
I don't know where it dropped out,
Yeah, I think Jason, was away during the meetings and some of that
Oh.
didn't happen,
and so it got cut.
yeah.
I mean, my overall message with this slide, and this is a Jason summary, these are not the actual budget Excels from town, but it just summarizes over past years. You can see the cuts keep on going. It was proposed for 2,000 last year. Our current year budget's $1,000. I don't believe we've spent any of it.
Right.
So, but the future is what we should focus on, and I sent it. Oops, excuse me. Can't see it without my glasses. And I've sent this also. Let me see if I can make that bigger on the screen. But we do have a copy of this. So, in my mind, when you put together, when you're going to spend money, you should be trying to achieve something. Sort of what you just said, Sharon. And so.
The only question I have, I like the idea, but are we really thinking we're gonna do trail maintenance and signage? I had thought that wasn't really our role.
Where are you reading?
I think
can
it's
ask.
the third one.
Improve. Third one, increase expertise in open space
The
recreation.
budget line item is the third one.
Okay, signage,
Signage.
deploy signs for walker, driver awareness and safety.
I think it's a good idea, but I just don't know that it's our role to do trail maintenance and signage.
Well, it's not for maintenance, our role is not trail maintenance, agreed. But awareness of, my thinking on this is that, a lot of the public's not aware of the open space. The way to get them aware of open space is to get them out a little bit, when possible. And even driving around, if they're crossing and they see that there's there's some signs that say there's trails through here, and maybe they'll go explore, maybe they won't, maybe they'll just see that there's signs, but if they keep seeing more signs, they become aware that it is there.
And maybe we can work with the land trust and the parks to work with them to have them have their idea, I mean, because they're the people maintaining it, so I think that we should
Yeah.
incorporate their help with these, but I think having the money for it's a good idea.
Okay. Now, the Trail Challenge, Kate unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. She had, that was adopted by the commission last year, and briefly it was for people who were really gonna go out and use the trails extensively. And they were gonna earn some points, and I'm gonna forget the details, Sharon, if you can help me, but, and at the end, they would get a pin that they have a certain level of achievement. Now, I think Kate may be open to changing the nature of that. I talked to her briefly about maybe making it more family-friendly in terms of activities, maybe not as challenging, but just to get people out. And so that's the idea of that first line item. So, I mean, you can all read, put this back up if you want to read it there. This is, it's not quite there, but on the bottom, if I scroll, I think I showed you there, we were $1,000 this year. The challenge to the departments, and think of us as a department right now for this purpose, was to show fiscal restraint as we put together the budget. The town feels it's going to be under pressure because of the increase in the Amity and the Beecher school system budgets this year will be higher, and so money will be tight again. Comments?
I feel that the number 4, the open space map duplication and presentation materials, I think that's fairly unreasonably low to create presentation materials for $200.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're
yeah.
thinking of brochures or things to be,
Well, I will say that SCROG, South Central Region Council of Governments, they produce our handout trail maps online on the website, and ones you can hand out. My thought behind this item is this type of map, where it's large, and if we ended up going to an event that happens in the center here, and we have a table and we put up a couple maps like that, and it's another awareness in getting people where the open space is and how we're trying to build the greenway, blah blah blah, whatever messages we'd like to send on that. And so it's more to just do some poster boards, I guess is the
okay, so
the short answer for that.
it's not for brochures or giveaway materials.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I just think
it-
it's not, it's
yeah.
unrealistically low.
I mean, we don't have a plan to do anything right now. I guess, baby steps maybe, if we think of it that way, but
So
we didn't, maybe it's the Arbor Haven getting in the way. We didn't anticipate budget this year very well. And as we, some of these are, pilot things are a little smaller, and yeah, if we can think our way, if that's a good direction for us to go, then yeah, maybe
Well,
it needs to get bigger.
I do, it brought up the fact that at our special meeting when we were looking over those maps, we
Yeah.
really felt that we needed several of them updated, and I
Yes.
didn't know whether there was anything,
Well,
whether this
I
was part
I
of
am
it.
working with SCROG right now. Had a conversation with them, and I am optimistic that they can update this for us,
Oh, nice.
to get a better total town open space view.
Okay.
That's the one we don't have. So the try to make it short. The water company did this originally, and it got transferred to Scrog, so they should have it someplace. And the fellow I talked to, he said, I was here when this was done, so he's gonna look.
I have a question, so if we have a great idea in 5 or 6 months, like we're proposing a grant and we need someone to help us edit it and we have to pay them, are these funds specifically designated for that, or can we alter them, develop, depending on a different need that arises?
I would say that they're earmarked for that. If
But do we even
we
have
have
discretion?
we have two options. Go ask our finance person if they have some extra money. Number one, or number two, probably the first step would be, can we take money from one of these and,
Right.
and apply it to that? So,
Yeah,
and we can do that with, I believe, by in a process with the finance department.
Right. You can move money from one part of your budget to another part of your budget.
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
require. I did have a question though, there's nothing in here for acquiring open space. If land becomes available,
Yeah.
who funds that and where does that money come from?
Well, there is money there's money in an account for open space. I don't even know the amount of,
I think it's
that-
about $70,000.
okay, that'd be great. I don't know.
Let's guess.
We missed any of the capital funding. Money for land would be far in excess of the operations budget, which this is.
Capital budget.
It'd be a capital budget, and I just, was not notified, and I didn't know enough to, when to jump in. I called and say, when we're gonna start budgeting? They said, well, you'll get your package in a few days, and I said, then the capital, and they said, well, that's virtually done, so we missed the boat on that. So, but, Sharon, let me just finish the thought so I don't lose it. You noticed on there that one of the items, objectives of this year was to, for us to develop more expertise around grants as a commission.
Is that, can we have a budget for that, for like a conference or something like that, that some of us can go to possibly get educated? I'm just thinking education budget might, a couple $100 for that might be
Yeah,
also a useful idea.
to how to write grants
Yeah,
type of thing.
I know we have some expertise in people other than me, but.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just thinking, or even the process of writing a grant, getting someone. to
Yeah,
look at it.
I mean, that's why we're having the discussion. My thought putting this together was that we've had these, we had a budget line item that talked about fees for conferences, and we didn't spend it. We haven't gone down that road. So I said, why don't we use the money instead for things that might affect lots of people in town instead of one person on the commission or two people on the commission, and was hoping that at least this year, we don't even, what we need to find out about is what grants are there and consolidate that. We have pieces of that, but not a consolidated.
Just to add on to that, I agree with that, but, there's a conference, it's a weird number, like QIAG or, it's like Conservation Commission and Wetlands, and few people often go to it to get, the latest information and to network, and I don't know if that's automatically paid for, and we don't have to apply for that in this, or if it's part of this budget, because I know we didn't do it for the past 2 years because of COVID, but that might be worth asking about, because that was something that was helpful to
I would, I don't know, but I would make an assumption that we would have to pay for it. If we're sending our person, we would have to pay for it.
Chris Sullivan would absolutely know, but, maybe we should make a education line item then, just in case. Just
Well-
because that would be worth doing it.
Yeah. We, I don't know how to get this to stay on. As you can see, we're gonna have to do some trade, we may have to do trade-offs here. Essentially, the other part, I went from 1,000 to 1,450. The part of the instructions in submitting the budget is to say what we would take away to get to a 0% increase. So at the end of the day, we're gonna have to take, sort of rank the items and decide where to take the money from. So we can,
Okay, I'm not
We can
attached
do-
to it, I'm just thinking that
Yeah.
it's called Cappywhack. Cappywhack.
Cathy
I
Whack.
think it may, it may not need to be a line item.
Yeah. And again, I mean, you know, if we start down the learning about writing grants and that becomes more of a priority, then we can do the switch. I'm you know, you know, you saw that in last year's budget process, we got cut. It looks like,
We actually got more. 1920, we got 400. 2021, there was 400. 21, 22, adopted was 1,000.
the professional development dues has been pretty consistent at 500.
I have a question. If we don't spend $1,000, does that stay in reserve when we add to it, or is it, we go back to 0 and do we have to ask for it?
If you don't spend it in the year,
Yeah,
if you don't spend it in the year, it goes back into the general fund. So whatever is left over from your budget goes back into the bank essentially.
so basically, we didn't spend that 1,000, we're only asking for 400 more, we're asking for a lot less than we did last year, because the general fund already is getting back $1,000. You see what I'm using?
You can-
But, okay, I'm fine with this, it's better.
I mean, you should ask for what you think you're gonna need. Because as
Yeah.
I said before, if you
I
want
will-
more,
I-
then
why
you're
don't-
gonna have to.
When did I do this year? I can put it, I'll put it in, you know, next meeting, we can decide to take it out or leave it.
I'll talk to
But-
Chris Sullivan and find out if it is
Okay.
unnecessary.
All right, all right.
I think Maria Kane might know too, because I think she's associated with that organization also.
Uh-huh.
And if you get a chance, Sharon, you drop me the name or it's a strange
Yeah,
spelling
I will.
name if you get it officially.
Yeah.
And if she knows how much it is, so we'll budget that exact amount. Okay. No other, during the, you think about this after and we can add things and then discuss it next time. I just wanted to get it out in front. Okay, given the time, we're on to the next item, the member comments. Okay, not so bad, and suggestions for next item. So I'm going to start by recognizing Barbara because in the previous conversation I know she had an item to bring up to us. And once we do that, I think with the commission's agreement, we can postpone items 9 and 10 till next time. So think about that also in the next couple of minutes. But let's go and hear from Barbara and then anybody else that has.
Okay, this is just something that I wanted to throw out because of personal experience. And I didn't know whether the Conservation Commission would like to pursue at some point some kind of ordinance on saving trees specifically in the town. I don't mean specific trees, but I mean saving trees. And the reason I bring this up is partially because having lived here all my life, I've watched the town just totally lose a tremendous number of its trees, mostly through development. And most specifically in the last few months, I have been put in a situation because of my own feelings of not even being able to drive on my own road because a developer has completely clear-cut a huge section of Northrop Road to put 4 houses or 3 houses or whatever on it. So I refuse to even drive down my own road now, because it is such a horrendous change, and I don't think that developers or individuals, need to clear cut their land to build their houses. And I didn't know whether, and this may be something in the future, I'm just throwing out the idea of tree conservation for the Conservation Commission. And whether we should think about it further, I don't even know, I haven't thought of what direction, other than perhaps some kind of an ordinance that would, pursuing some kind of an ordinance that would, restrain people from clear cutting their land. Anyway, I just throw this idea and thought out, and I don't know how people think about it.
Yeah, I think fits in with what I think we should be concerned about.
There's not much left, I must
Yeah.
admit, we're coming at it
Yeah.
awfully late, but,
Yeah,
you know, what is left, maybe we can save.
yeah. Yeah, there was I'll say a development of a couple houses going in along Northrop. A series of roads that go from Northrop over. You mentioned it to me one time, I can't remember which road that's on, but
It's Northwood, I think that's the one.
is that the right one, where they,
It was Massaro property, but it was not included into the property that they,
yeah, where every tree went,
Yeah.
where you know that
it was
only
full
part of the
woods.
property was needed for the house. You
It
know,
was full woods, and they just,
Yeah.
they literally did clear cut it, because
Yeah. Yeah.
the first time I saw it,
yeah,
they had
Okay.
saved some of the largest trees, but then the second time I drove by, they had cut all those too. And they were cutting them for wood, I know what they were doing. They were cutting them for logging,
all right.
and making money on that before they sold the land and built the houses. So it's,
That's unfortunate.
Other than pavement too, on runoff
That's what I was
there's
thinking
all kinds
also,
of things,
yeah.
stuff, so
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
all kinds of
reason
things.
to be, I mean, it's
Besides the
it's
aesthetics,
surprising
Okay.
that's the first thing that
that there wasn't any already established
Alright.
jurisdiction that would
So-
have limited that ability.
so how would you suggest we go forward with developing your thought?
I don't know at this point.
Maybe we
Other
could,
than everybody considering it and thinking how they would like to perhaps see an
Okay.
ordinance in the
Alright.
town.
So why don't we add it as an item for next time, just to
I mean, I
just
think-
gather anybody's thoughts on how
I
to,
think we take discussion
how
over
to-
several meetings.
what we could do and,
In
Okay.
other towns, if there's any
And-
other.
yeah, and
Right.
maybe that's a quick research on the web that,
Mhm.
what the Wetlands Commission or some of the other environmentally focused commissions have, or even the building department has in terms of clear cutting land. So whatever we propose is kind of in concert
Yeah.
with what's already existing.
yeah, I don't know, I wonder if zoning has anything either also.
That's a good
In the
point.
They
regs,
don't have
yeah.
anything existing, or they wouldn't have allowed what happened.
Mm. And
And I know-
maybe that's the place that we would introduce something,
Right.
but, okay,
When
so
I
why don't
sold
we,
some property
we'll
myself,
put
I
it,
had to put it in the deed.
I think you should start with Chris Sullivan, because she would know.
yeah, Yeah.
Right.
And then if you want to, if you want to request an ordinance, then you have to go before the ordinance committee
right,
and make a presentation.
right, yeah, well, that, we're a long ways from that, but,
Okay.
but, yeah, I think, great. Anybody else have member comments? I'm not gonna go and call on people tonight. I've done that in the
Well, my only question is, I remember if you wanna. talk
Oh,
about
yes.
yourself?
Sure. My name is Paul Harrigan. I'm a lifelong resident of Woodbridge. I attended Center Road School, Beecher School, Amity. I've lived here all my life. My family's been in town for a long time also. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I enjoy doing things outside. I I've chosen to live in Woodbridge because of its rural character, and it's important for me that that character be maintained going forward.
Good. Thank you.
I'd like to say something.
Sure, go ahead.
Welcome to the Conservation Committee. I think that Woodbridge, and you had mentioned an initiative regarding the trails, and I've spoken this to other people here. I think Woodbridge needs to, rather than accept an image or a narrative about it, that they need to create their own. I think sometimes Woodbridge gets a negative connotation, and I think that we on the Conservation Committee, if we did have some discretionary funds, we should promote the image of Woodbridge and not just accept what people say about the town. So if people are conservationists, we have trails, use that to do an annual event talking about this is the person of Woodbridge. They like the outdoors. They like trails. They're environmentalists. That's the narrative that I think that we can help to create, rather than Woodbridge is exclusionary and whatever else people say. And I think that with a little bit of money in an annual event or an initiative, I think the money would be well spent to create a positive image of the people of Woodbridge and of Woodbridge itself, and why they are here. He just mentioned that he likes the outdoors, and these are, and a lot of people, I believe, that's my image, why people come here. My husband loves trails too.
Yeah.
And I think that they never seem to answer or say anything. They allow people to say, well, this is what a Woodbridge resident is, rather than they taking the time and creating your own narrative. You create your own and say, this is what we're about. We're about health. We're about bike riding. We're about running. We're about.
I think there's another thing this commission could help with too, is helping new residents appreciate what we love about the town. And I think a lot of people move here, and for better or worse, they don't really understand what the town has to offer. And the town has a lot to offer. And you know, the history and understanding the context of Woodbridge, I think that would be an important thing that this commission could help people understand.
Yeah.
That we have a trail system, that our rural character is important. And if you're moving to Woodbridge, you're not moving to Woodbridge because you want it to be something different than it is. It's nice the way it is today.
Yeah. Right. Yes. I appreciate the comment. I once or twice it's passed my mind. I wonder what. Well, when I moved to town, they used to have I think it was the welcome wagon still, or basket, and they gave you some handouts, and I always wondered what we do for the new residents now to make them aware of what's in town. So I think it is good thought. And Val, I'm wondering if the Economic Development Council is trying to do what you're saying as part of what they're doing. I don't know.
Maybe we do it from the Conservation Committee.
Yeah.
So that, you
Yeah.
had mentioned having, they have a, believe, I don't drink wine, but they have what they call a wine crawl.
Yeah.
And so you go through the state, but you could
Yep.
do something with, like you said, start a 3-month, 4-month initiative where families go out and do as many trails and log so many miles, and make it something where people can get behind it.
Yeah, I mean, open it up to non-Woodbridge residents. Kate's Trail Challenge and things. And I should have mentioned, I was talking about that Kate may need a couple people to start to brainstorm with about where she wants that to go. So if you're interested in that, we'll pick it up the next meeting. Let me see if, sure, if
It
there's
looks
something.
like a light item I just don't want you to forget. The December 22nd meeting is going to be key for me, and I appreciate you highlighting that. And I'm just wondering if we might want to create a special meeting a week earlier, or do something differently, cause I think I might be away. And if I'm the only person away, but I just know that.
Yeah, I'm certainly willing to look at the calendar and we can switch that. People have calendars now and can say if we did it a week earlier.
It would be preferable, definitely.
Okay, I'm hearing a consensus in that, so let me write down that note.
Do we need
What's
to vote
that?
on it, or is that, we'll have to vote?
I think we seem a consensus.
This is for the 2022 calendar or 2021?
21.
Okay.
7,
So what would that date be? I don't have my,
The 15th would be the
15th.
prior Thursday,
okay. All right.
or prior Wednesday, right?
Prior Thursday.
Thursday.
This is 16th.
16th, thank you, Paul. Okay. Any other comments? Let me see if I can edit my list to, one of the, Coopop, we have the privilege of having a representative at the Coopop meetings. I've done that for the past couple meetings. If anybody's interested in doing that, let me know offline, and usually there's an obligation to give them an update of what we're up to. Besides that.
Is that something they do, just some special idea that they have, that they invite?
They have, they invite the planning and zoning, a rep and from the Conservation Commission.
The question being, is it a reciprocal thought, or is it just,
No,
is it?
no, it hasn't ever been, that I know that we have someone from Coopop on a regular basis, attend.
But is that possible?
We do have a liaison, and what's happening is that, if you look at the Board of Selectmen meetings, each of the Board of Selectmen have the boards and commissions that they're on, and they go to the meetings, and then they report back to the Board of Selectmen, and then the liaison reports back to us, so there's a tie that way.
But intercommissions, they're,
It's informal, it's not,
right, so, I mean, it would be possible if we decided,
we could ask
To have-
for someone, sure, yeah, I'm
Or
sorry,
maybe even
missed
a
the point.
presentation once or twice a year, just to
Yeah.
get abreast of what they
something
do.
like that.
Yeah,
That might be, cause I really don't know.
it's been on my mind, and I keep, we just haven't gotten to it, but, to have some other people come in who just to talk to us a little bit, give us, almost as Kathy Wick did tonight, it just started, she said she wanted to give some background. I think there's probably some history and some background would be valuable for us to know and understand. I mean, there's new, as you said, new members.
Yeah.
And that's good stuff, so and I think about even, with the specific one I had in mind was the land trust, just because they're in a similar vein as we are, and I would love to know, if,
I think that's a good idea.
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay,
The land trust is different than others because they're not a town committee, they're
Yes, right,
independent
right.
private, so they
Right.
might not wanna.
well, yeah, I mean,
No, but they-
it's an invitation, it's
Right.
not a,
No, but I
Command.
just, it's different than
the committee, yeah.
because it might be
Yeah.
interesting to
Well,
have
my
residents come and talk
thought
to
was
us sometimes.
Right.
individuals, private
Uh-huh,
citizen, if you will.
that's interesting.
All right, I don't, the only other, two things I'll mention, the Park Lane Trail reconnections, that came up to us as we were looking for a way to apply a grant, the Onyx grant that Kate had found, and Kate's not here, so, in some ways this is mostly for her benefit, but I'll update her, that's the company putting in the solar farm up on Park Lane cuts a couple of our trails, so they need to be relocated. We're gonna use a grant. We found a good way to use the grant that they would provide, because it's steep terrain and needs some terraces, but we need to wait until, they're delayed in getting their fence around their property, and that will enable that, so, I mean, that might, and that hopefully gonna be an experience in grant writing, and we'll get some experience as a commission when we do that.
What is the name of that company?
Onyx, O-N, might be lowercase o-n and then capital X.
X.
Could be capital O-N, X,
Okay, but somehow it's
I like
ONX.
that combination. And the last thing, Sharon, I'll address this to you. I missed the quotes. You haven't given us a quote in a while.
Oh, okay, I'll look at it.
With that, I will move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you all very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.